Hey everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hey everybody. It's Mike and live. And gonna talk about Hare Krishnas again. And I just want to say I want to give a shout out to everybody who is protesting Scientology. Good work out there. And keep up the good work. And all over. Everybody who's protesting Scientology. All over the world, if you're protesting, good for you. That's a good use of your time. And let's see what else. So anyway, let's get right into the opening, I guess. Let's do this. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. So, back to the Hare Krishnas. And I don't really care or find it important whether the Hare Krishnas murdered or poisoned the founder, Prabhupada. Now, it doesn't change anything. It one way or the other. It doesn't make the people who his followers who are accused of poisoning him, the people that were around him, that they claim were responsible. It doesn't make them any worse. I mean, would make them murderers, but they're already horrible people, and other people, they went on to murder other people. Not all of them, but I mean, other murders took place under the leadership of these same people. And all the other horrible things that they did. That's undisputed. That's history. So, whether they murdered the founder or not, it doesn't change anything. It makes them a little bit worse, but they're already beating and banning and murdering and raping kids and doing all kinds of horrible things. Whether they murdered him or not, that's just another thing that they're probably, that, you know, if they did it, it's just another thing that they're guilty of on a long list of things that they're guilty of. And as an organization and individually. There are individuals that are responsible for a lot of these things that have never been brought to justice, that are still in charge. Some of them have passed away. Some of them are in jail. Some of them are just out playing guru, living the good life. So whether they poisoned him or not doesn't change any of that. It doesn't change the $400 million lawsuit of the kids, the 25 or more kids, grown kids that deleted themselves, all the child marriages and all the little girls who were married off. It doesn't change any of that. They want to say that those people were responsible, but so what? They're already responsible for all the other stuff, and Prabhupada's responsible for it too, because he created it, and he created them. He created them. He's responsible for creating them. and then they, like a Frankenstein, they turned around and killed him. He created them. He told them that there had been murders in the history of the parampara. He told them how they murdered gurus. He said even my guru or whatever. And then he told them the story about how the guy had the affair with the woman and at the prostitute or whatever, and she had a baby, and then they killed the baby, killed him, killed the baby, or killed the wife, the baby. I don't remember. It's a horrible story. When I heard it, I was like, what the hell? That's Prabhupada's guru's godbrother, or whatever. Bhaktisiddhanta's successor, whatever. If you don't know the story and you're a Hare Krishna and you're over there in Vrindavan and you're just chanting away and you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. You can look it up. Or maybe you've been in for 10 years and you don't know. Or 20 years and you don't know. Because you never asked, no one told you. I'm telling you. I know. This is the shit that Prabhupada said it. He told him the story. He told them how horrible these people are. And then they learned from him how to be the perfect asshole. How to hate women, how to be homophobic, how to mistreat children and not give a shit. The kids are starving. How do you have a bunch of kids in a school? Little kid. We're not talking teen, we're talking little kids. Little. And you can't feed them. If you can't provide a meal and structure for these kids, then you shouldn't have a school. God damn it, what the fuck? How much... Who did Prabhupada think he was? He thought, I'll tell you exactly how this happened. He thought that this Vedic culture and these Vedic books, these scriptures, and all these stories and all this crap that thought it was perfect and everything would, but it was all a bunch of stories. It's not real. So he creates a school based on a fantasy. That's like, I'm going to open up a Hobbit school based on Lord of the Rings. What the fuck is that? So he creates a Gurukul. Because in his mind, this is what it was like when Krishna was here. This was the perfect Vedic culture. Where everyone sends their kids to this Gurukul, this guru in the school. Like there was a school with some guru sitting there. And I just... So they send their kids to this school, and these kids are totally mistreated, starved, fed crap, and they're doing that today in India. Shit, just a few years ago, they got caught in India. They were distributing food. They found all these bugs and shit in the food that they were serving to kids. It's disgusting. Shit happens in India. You're out. There's no very little, Food and Drug Administration, or USDA. I mean, anybody can cook a pot of rice and some vegetables or whatever, and go feed a bunch of hungry people. Anybody can do that, and bugs can get in there, and worms and bugs and lizards and whatever can get in that food. It's very easy if you're sloppy and you don't give a shit. Who cooks food for kids and lets it get infested with bugs and whatever? It's disgusting. These people are fucking disgusting. They can't treat their own kids with simple dignity that the rest of the world does. And then they turn around and talk shit about the rest of the world. Oh, they're uncivilized, and they're karmis, and they're in Maya, and they're in the modes of material nature, and they don't follow any rules and regulations. No, we know how to take care of our kids. I mean, yeah, society's not perfect, and you know what? Your society is far from perfect. You people are the last people to be talking about how fucked up society is. At least we turn in criminals when we turn in criminals when we catch them. If we know that someone is molesting a bunch of little kids, we turn them into the police. And then the court system has the brains to put them on a list so that the public can figure out where these people live, because they can't sentence them to life. Maybe they could. They'd have to change the law to do that. But as it stands now, they can't sentence them to life. So once they get out of jail, so at least we non-Hare Krishnas, we know how to do that. We can at least figure that out. And when we do find out that the kids have been tortured or abused or mistreated or malnutrition, whatever, we take care of them. We take them to the doctor. We take them to therapy. We get them help. You guys don't do that. You tell them chant more. All those kids that were abused in the Hare Krishna schools, they didn't get any help. That's why when they grew up, they're full of trauma, realizing what they lived through. Ended up, 25 of them ended up, and and it's amazing they're only 25. The shit that those little kids went through, and I'm talking about little kids. Little kids, all. Because those same little kids that were being abused in the schools grew up and became abusers of the littler kids. It's fucking disgusting. And whose idea was it to create that school? Who put those people in charge of the school? Who ran everything like a friggin' dictator? Prabhupada did. So you can't say that Prabhupada wasn't responsible. He picked. Fucking drives me crazy. And then they want to sit there and talk about how Prabhupada is this perfect, pure devotee, doesn't make mistakes. He's above the modes of material nature. He's transcendental. He comes from Goloka Vrindavan. He's in direct contact with Krishna. He sees Krishna face to face. He sees Krishna. All that bullshit. If that was true, why the fuck didn't he take care of the kids? Why didn't he just say, look, when this shit gets going, we're going to open up a really great school. I'm going to send some of you guys to learn how to be teachers, and we'll have a building somewhere, and we'll have a real school. No, he didn't do that. Somebody's got a house. Oh, there's a house in Dallas. Somebody gave me a house. Well, we'll just turn that house into a school. And all these hippies can send their kids to the school so they can go do what? Go fucking play Hare Krishna? go cosplay as a 16th century Bengali transsexual? Running around chanting Hare Krishna? Dressing up like a gopi? And they're still doing that today. People from all over the world join this friggin' cult, send their kids to these schools in India, because they can't open no school in the U.S. I don't think they could. They wouldn't. They got sued, 400 million. So they send their kids to these schools in India. Who knows what the hell? It was so sad listening to that grown man telling the video. He wasn't telling me, watching the video of him talking about how he was a little kid in India, in this school, getting abused, being raped, being physically abused, sexually abused, and just thinking, why am I even here? I was born in Ohio, Cincinnati, or St. Louis. He's like, what? I don't even understand why I'm even here. In this boarding school. Then that other girl said she didn't even know who her parents were. They dropped her off when she was a baby, and she was just raised in the temple, just by whoever. And they didn't even know who her parents were. It took her years. She couldn't find her parents until they were grown. And they were just Hare Krishnas. It's not like they were hiding. She just didn't know who they were. And they didn't care. Whose idea is all that? Who does that? Who? Because that's not part of, like, American society. We don't. These people that were educated in the 50s and 60s in American school system, they weren't taught. They weren't taught. They didn't see anywhere where parents just turned their kids over to dropped them off in a strange school and went off to go join a cult. Where'd they get the idea to that? That was totally Prabhupada. Prabhupada talked them into it. Prabhupada convinced them to do that. And then he didn't even give a shit about their kids. He convinced them to put their kids in his school, and then he didn't even give a shit what was going on with the kids. He was like, I don't care. Go here. Here's a book. Go sell my books. Literally. He said, go put your kids in my school, because it's Vedic tradition. It wasn't a school. It was a big babysitting place run by a bunch of fucking hippies. They didn't know what to do with these kids. This guy. And then when it comes time to figure out what he's going to do with his movement, he doesn't know what to do. Why? Because these guys are fucking idiots. He probably realized, oh my God, these guys are still as stupid as the day I met them. But all cult leaders, they never want to turn over the cult to the new person because they think that they're going to live forever. He wasn't gonna say, okay, you guys take over, and I'm gonna. He knew these guys couldn't take over his. These guys are as dumb as a stump. They had to be. I mean, even he figured that out. Here he fails. He successfully fails in writing some books and getting these stupid hippies out there selling his books and collecting money and bringing new people in and selling more books. I mean, if you're a hippie and you could drop your kids off and go chant Hare Krishna and sell flowers and books and not have to do anything, I mean, it's probably attractive to it, but wasn't. I didn't join it for that. I wasn't. That's not what wasn't for me. But I wasn't in the '60s and early '70s. I wasn't in that mindset. I was a little kid then. These guys were like in high school and maybe a little bit older when they joined. Most of them. So tune in, drop your kid off, and go play Hare Krishna. That's what they're doing. I see them on the internet now. That's what they're doing now. He's still brainwashing people with these books. That's why they say that the pen is mightier than a sword. The sword, a book can really change someone's life. And people can read just a normal book, like I don't know, The Hobbit or something, or Moby Dick or something, and they go, "Wow, that book changed my life," or "What a great book! You got to read this book by whatever." I read the vampire book and it was just so amazing, or whatever. And you can imagine a book that's designed to change your mind. It's designed. Every word on the page is designed to change your mind about everything. Not just show you a new world or give you some ideas and to actually like indoctrinate you. These books are powerful books. People go around doing all that stuff just to get. But anyway, this guy, he created this whole mess. And he created these weirdo freaks that not only would drop their kids off, but would murder people, murder devotees, beat people up. There's a video of Prabhupada sitting there, and the devotee gets up, and I knew that devotee. He gets up and he says, you guys think you're all that, but we don't have a problem fighting with you. We'll fight with you. He's like, we'll match you. We'll match punch for punch or whatever he says. Whatever he says, I don't remember exactly. But he threatens them. He says, if you guys keep talking up and disrespecting, we'll meet you outside. Where do they get that idea? Where do they get the idea that you just start bullying people around? That's a spiritual life. I'm on a spiritual quest, and I'm gonna kick your ass if you keep it up. I don't. And Prabhupada was into that. He taught him that. He liked that. He liked that he had these guys, and they would beat these people up for him and threaten people for him. And he's just sitting there like, yeah, these are my guys. He created these people. Murdering devotees, shooting them in their van, shooting them in the commune and burying them under a river so no one will find them. I mean, these people are despicable. These people are despicable. So, if you say, well, did they poison the founder? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? I mean, to me, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. But why? Yeah, I think they did. I think that's how sick and disgusting and fucked up I think they are. That they would. Sure, why not? I think they would. I absolutely think they would. Do I know for a fact? Nah. No one will ever know for a fact. I mean, unless they find a note. Unless they find a note or something like that.
I am super honored to welcome Maheshwar Prabhu. His Grace Maheshwar Prabhu is an author, the author of this book called Deception. It's around the topic, which is even hard to talk about personally, and I know everyone here can agree with that, this whole conspiracy that Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, was poisoned by his disciples, which is it's just like a very painful thing to even think about.
This is a bit of an unusual episode in that, like,
yes,
even just to like engage with a topic like that, it almost
totally
it's actually
it's hard to even
it's
say.
so distasteful.
Yeah,
but and at the same time, it's so necessary because there is this theory out there, right? I mean, you know, we can talk about the language, but I would even wager to say a conspiracy. There's this conspiracy theory out there.
Yes.
And this book is a response to a very thorough, well-researched response to, and one can say rebuttal to, that theory.
Yes, demystifying, debunking, you could say. Maheshwar Prabhu, thank you for coming all the way to do this. Really appreciate it.
And I think you should also mention that for people who are reading challenged, they can just watch the 55-minute movie.
Yes, I'm going to link that in the description of this video, YouTube video. Maheshwar Prabhu has produced a 55-minute movie regarding this whole topic that if you can't go through the book, you'll be able to go through the movie, which is a really fantastic movie, kind of discusses all the different points. But
so they've even gone as far as to make a little movie about this whole thing because they just want to convince you that these people would not do it. That there's no way. Well, he's going to explain why they don't think that this could have happened, but it totally could have happened. There's absolutely no reason. There's no reason on earth why anyone would suspect that they wouldn't do this. In fact, if they opened up an investigation, they would immediately take these guys in and go, well, we think you did it because we don't even have to we don't even need any evidence. We just know we just know who he is and who you guys are. We don't even need to know anything about the poisoning or anything like that. We already think you guys did it because they're so shady.
Maheshwar Prabhu, please tell us briefly, who are you in relation to this topic and how did you get involved with this topic?
Well, briefly about myself, I was at the University of Kansas studying industrial design in my 4th year, and I had read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and I was very convinced that this is the way of life. And I really fell into this, I've got to get out of college, which was difficult because my parents expected me to finish. I only had a few months. And then Radha Damodar program showed up, and I jumped on the bus and became a Radha Damodar devotee.
Wow.
And then eventually went on to the biggest things that I started doing was I was part of the whole Rath Yatra in 1976 with Jayananda. I've actually done a whole.
So again, like I was saying in one of my other videos, was that's what happened with Prabhupada. He was in college, and the guru came around and recruited Prabhupada, and then I don't know, somehow Prabhupada ended up not getting his diploma. He ended up, like, I guess he dropped out of college. Now the mythology is that, or legend, or the mythology is that Prabhupada, he graduated, but he did not accept his diploma. And I don't know what that's all about. But a lot of these guys did exactly what this person here did. He read Bhagavad Gita. He read Bhagavad Gita, met Srila Prabhupada, and I'm going to join this Srila Prabhupada's mission because Bhaktivedanta Swami, he's just the greatest. He's a pure devotee, and so now I'm going to just waste my entire life from college, from age like 20 or 22 until the rest of his life. 50 years, 45, 50 years, selling books, just selling. I mean, I think he's probably had a little business on the outside. He hasn't been just a Hare Krishna. He's been a Hare Krishna the whole time, but he's got, there, at some point he decided he was going to have a business, and he's got some business doing something. I don't know what he does. But it's not like he just lives in a temple and he's just Mr. Hare Krishna. No, that's what I'm saying about these guys. They're not like all what they say, because they can't. Even the guys that live in the temple are not what they say they are. But anyway, like everybody else, he got a Bhagavad Gita, and then they changed his life. It just changed his life, and he just knew he had to go join this Hare Krishna.
Special talk about what happened the day before the parade. The carts fell over, and it's a whole thing. That's it's a separate broadcast. But and then I eventually went to India in 1978. They knew that I knew about Roth Cart, so I built the Calcutta Roth Cart, and that eventually led to me going to Bombay, where I built the Bombay Roth Cart, which eventually led to me going to England, where I built the England Roth Cart. In the meantime, worked very strongly on the Samadhi, pulled it out of the ground. I was the first person to actually get the foundation going and everything.
Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan.
Yeah.
And then later on, migrated to Los Angeles and worked with Amarendra on the as a paralegal, and some of the bigger cases we had back then, which was one of the big ones I worked on was the Robin George case. And then part of the reason to bring it up to today's subject, why did I?
So he worked on the Robin George case, and so that was, so that was the case where they were found guilty of harboring a minor and hiding her out from her parents so that they couldn't find her, and they were moving her around, and they got sued. When she finally came out of her cult stupor, she woke up and she realized, oh, I'm in a cult, and she left. Then her family turned around and sued them and said, hey, you brainwashed our kid. She was only 14 or whatever when she joined, and the family won. And if you don't know about that, you can look it up on the internet. You can read all about it. And so he just confessed and said that he was part of that whole fiasco. They were hiding out a 14-year-old girl. 14, 15-year-old girl. These grown men were shuffling her around so that her parents couldn't find her.
Involved with this is because I know all the players. I've worked with all of the players, and I'm aware of all the players on both sides of the argument.
So the main three people, the three devotees who actually put this poison thing out, you know all of them.
I don't know Naveen Krishna personally, but I've heard indirectly through a lot of people who have worked with him. So yes, I feel I'm very comfortable in saying I have a pretty good understanding of where they're all coming from. Yes.
Okay.
And it's just maybe worth mentioning, because I think sometimes with a topic like this, there may be this sense that there's like this, huge group of people that are, that believe in this or that are, but actually we're when it comes down to it, we're talking about sort of, three specific individuals, and again we're here really to kind of discuss the arguments and the content. So we're not going to necessarily get into personalities, unless it's relevant. But really, we're talking about three individuals who are kind of
behind
all of this, and are kind of promoting this idea and trying to get traction around this idea. Yes,
which did get traction, did it not?
And I'll even narrow it down a little bit more than that. It's really only one individual who, like I said before, if you want to talk about how Sharon Tate died, you have to talk about Charles Manson. And in this case, Charles Manson was clearly not in the right mind. And I think we have a very similar situation here. It was started from one individual who has a very strong reason to want to create and disrupt everything that goes on in ISKCON. He was also responsible for starting the Ritvik thing. He was so emotionally unstable and difficult to work with. The people who took up the Ritvik banner eventually kicked him, threw him under the bus, as they say. And now recently we're finding that the other two individuals that you're referring to, they've done the same thing. They've realized he's more of a liability than a help in terms of propagating this ridiculous rumor. And so now they've distanced themselves from him as well.
But you're saying that the sort of the rumor that then like turns into this conspiracy theory really sort of originates with this individual and his sort of
one individual. And the thing is even though they're kind of like distancing themselves from him, the ironic thing here is they're still using all the ridiculous arguments that have absolutely no foundation in logic or reason. It's all emotionally driven, and that's their target audience, is to get people who they feel like they've been mistreated or ISKCON did something wrong. And I don't think anybody on the ISKCON side will deny the fact that we've made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And people have gotten hurt, and some more than others. And so when you have that, that's what conspiracy theories tend to draw.
So, okay, so right there he said something revealing. He said that he admits that there were a lot of mistakes made, a lot of people have been hurt. Well, I agree. There were a lot of mistakes made, and a whole lot of people were hurt. And I don't know what he's trying to say is that ISKCON is, the mistakes were made, but they had nothing to do with Prabhupada. That it was someone else made these mistakes, but Prabhupada is ultimately responsible. Not just ultimately, but he picked these people. He designed this cult. He created it. He designed it. He ran it. He created the schools. He created the guru system. He created the GBC. He created the GBC members. He told them how to do their jobs and how to run the place. He gave them, of course, their spiritual teachings, which didn't do anything because none of them became anything even close to like a real spiritual. You can't protect pedophiles and claim that they are perfect and all of this is where they go wrong. They want everyone to think that they're perfect and that they're God's successor. Like they're actually they represent God himself. These people think they're so delusional. They think that these people, these gurus are somehow so godlike, even though they're not. I mean, obviously they're not, because they're molesting little kids and they're doing all these things. So how do you reconcile that? Prabhupada says they are. Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, well, even if a saintly person does something really horrible and abominable, you still have to consider them saintly. Aha. Prabhupada says, even if somebody does something really horrible, we still have to, if they're chanting and being devotional, then we still have to accept them. So there's our way out. So if we want to, we can still be, a saintly person, and our buddy can be a pedophile, and I can forgive him and still hang around with him, and I don't have to turn him in. I don't have to, I can even keep it a secret if I have to keep it a secret. And if he's already been found out, I can still pal around with him. I don't have to distance myself from him, because it's Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita. So these guys, they want to be. It's that's why it's so insidious. So insidious. this desire for them to be the spiritual master, this guru, whatever. Meanwhile, he can't even explain why Prabhupada would say, I'm being poisoned. Because he did say it. Was Prabhupada just didn't know what he was talking about?
Kind of people, because they feel frustrated because they've been mistreated and they want to do something.
Yeah.
And so this is the magnet or the lightning rod that brings those people together, and this is where the momentums come from.
I think you said it in a.
So he wants to blame this whole poison thing on this one guy who is a nut. He is a nutcase. But the evidence is there. There's circumstantial evidence. There's no hard evidence. There's nothing that says that these guys poisoned Prabhupada. But the circumstantial evidence is like, it's pretty good. And then just knowing their character and knowing the history, it doesn't take
Ritvik
it
episode,
doesn't take
which
Sherlock
Mahesh
Holmes to
watched
figure
and
this out.
Really liked, which I also enjoyed that episode. That the Ritvik thing was a trauma response. So in the same way, this poison thing, you also say, Prabhu, you agreed that this is a trauma response.
Absolutely, totally. And then the reason why I'm trying to bring the analogy of Charles Manson in is because when people understand all that, you have to be kind of deranged to actually, where do these people live? What world do they?
So now he's trying to say that you have to be deranged to believe that these deranged people might do something deranged. That you have to be deranged to think that these people who have been already proven to have been really shady, undesirable, criminal characters, you have to be deranged to think that these horrible people would do something horrible. That's what he's trying to say.
Live in, and as we go through the discussion today, I'm going to be making statements, and people are going to say, well, how could anybody think like that?
Right.
Well, it's because they don't think the way a healthy, reasonable, rational individual thinks.
And just to be clear, you're
He says they don't think like a clear, normal, rational person thinks, yet he thinks there's a four-headed guy that grows out of the flower that grows out of the stem of a four-armed guy who lays down on an ocean of his own sweat, but he's laying on a snake that's really his brother, and he's got all these 9 snake heads, and he's laying on there sleeping while this flower grows, and there's a four-headed guy growing on that flower. That's what he believes. And he's going to sit here and talk about what a normal person would accept as evidence, while he's denying, one, that Prabhupada says that he was poisoned, and then the people whispering in the background of the tape recordings where they're talking about poisoning him, and then the levels of poison that are in Prabhupada's hair or whatever things they have. So they have this circumstantial evidence that doesn't really, I mean, them talking about poison is that's one thing. And then Prabhupada saying he was poisoned is another thing. And then finding a poison in Prabhupada's body, in his hair or some, that's pretty circumstantial. I mean, that's more than just a deranged person making this up. Now, I'm not saying that that's conclusive evidence that proves that Prabhupada was poisoned. It's not. It probably wouldn't hold up in court. If you had this evidence and you took it into a court and you had a lawyer and a prosecutor and a lawyer, and you had the evidence and you were listening to it and they were playing it to the jury, and all things considered, and the jury had to make a decision, I don't think they would find, I don't think they could have, I don't think they have enough evidence. I just don't. They need a little, I think they need a little bit more. And I know because I read the books, I know what they're talking about. I know about, I was there at the time when all this happened. So I know, and that's why I'm saying I still believe that they poisoned him, but I just don't believe they can prove it. There's no way they can prove it. But to try and deny, and to think, and it's not just me that thinks, I mean, so many people who know a lot more about the subject than I do wrote books about it, they've made videos about it, they've talked about it, they've done all this stuff. It's a lot of people that believe that he was poisoned. It's not just like one or two nuts. It's like, it's a lot of people that believe he was poisoned. Enough people that they had to write books about. And it's not just one book. It's like one guy wrote a book, and then some other people wrote a book, and then ISKCON wrote a book, and now this guy's written a book. So it's not like there's just like one book. It's not like just one or two nuts. If it was one or two nuts, there wouldn't be all these books written about it. Nobody would be talking about it on a podcast. They're sitting here talking on a podcast, and he's saying, well, it's, there's one nut and then whatever. No, it's a lot of people and a lot of evidence.
You're saying that's not a coincidence. That's because the origins of this is someone who
Had a vendetta right from the very beginning.
had a vendetta, is,
Emotionally,
mentally unstable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we don't wish to be unkind, but,
Right.
to
Right.
sort of...
All right, so I don't understand his logic. He's saying that this is all caused by this one individual who's emotionally deranged and unstable, and just he's got a vendetta and all this stuff. So what? All these people wrote a book. All these people wrote books and had books published. Like, he's got this book sitting on his table there. I mean, that wasn't free. I don't know who paid for it, but someone paid to have that book printed and bound and all of that. That cost some money. And it could be his own money, but somebody had to come up with some money for that. And you don't write books and make videos and do all this stuff because of one deranged, mentally unstable guy who's got a vendetta, who thinks whatever. You don't. You just, nobody does that. So don't try to feed us a bunch of bullshit about it's just this one guy, and then he spread this thing, and he's got a vendetta, and he's mentally unstable. What is him being... So what if he's mentally unstable? What does that have to do with him presenting the evidence? Mentally unstable people can be honest and truthful. Emotionally unstable, mentally unstable people, he can still... What does this guy's mental state have to do with what is on the tape of what Prabhupada said and what they said, and the poison that's in Prabhupada's hair? What does that have to do with this guy's being mentally stable or not? You got to question yourself on that you got to question that right there. Why would you go to all these lengths if what you're saying is true? If it's just this guy who's mentally stable,
that brings
why
up
are
the
you going
question:
through all
why
this?
put attention on someone's derangement, so to say?
Yeah,
Well,
derangement.
Unfortunately, I've been saying...
Sorry to cut you off.
I'm pushing the main ISKCON institution, and I agree originally. I mean, this thing blew up and originally showed up in 1999, and there was a lot of effort to try to adequately find out what really happened, because originally it was like, oh, well, maybe we should look at this seriously. And so they put out a website, they did their research, and they came up with a website which is now called Not That I've Been Poisoned. And the arguments are there, although they're kind of antiquated at this point because we're 25 years down the road.
Basically, probably like everything else in life, everything else he talked about, he was ambiguous. It was sometimes yes and sometimes no. So he said, I'm being poisoned by these guys. And who knows, maybe Prabhupada was being delirious. And then another time when they asked him about, well, can you explain what you mean about being poisoned, as if they didn't know what that meant, he said, well, not that I'm being poisoned. So maybe he was delirious when he said that. We just don't know. But the fact that Prabhupada's talking about poison, not that I'm poisoned or I was poisoned, these guys poisoned me, and then he's talking in another language, or it's too shady to just say, "Oh, it didn't happen." What? And they have no explanation for it. So then they got to just say, "Well, I don't know what they got to say. I don't know how they could have written 2 books. I didn't read the ISKCON book because they're just basically saying, "Hey, it didn't happen."
But the effort was made to quash it, but since then, and then it resurged again in 2017, with now the original argument was, oh, Prabhupada had all the symptoms of being poisoned by arsenic. And the research on the hair was all done looking for arsenic. And then magically by 2017, it's like, oh, well, now Prabhupada had all the symptoms of cadmium. Well, wait a minute, the symptoms of cadmium and the symptoms of arsenic are not the same.
Right.
So how could they be, right there, there's a complete logical discontinuation.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to, one thing we should maybe say is there's a lot of material here, right? And we're not going to get to all of it. We do recommend, anyone and everyone really just to be informed. I know it's a dense read, but it, cannot stress enough, it's worth checking out the book, checking out the 55-minute documentary. We're not going to get to everything, but we are going to try to hit sort of some of the major points. We're going to talk about some of the science, and I say this as someone not from a science background, so we're going to try to make this really understandable and accessible. You don't need to have a chemistry degree to understand this, but we're talking about accusations of arsenic poisoning and then cadmium poisoning, so we're going to get to that. There's, we're going to talk about
what Srila Prabhupada said himself.
What Srila Prabhupada himself said, what others who were present at that time in his last days, up to his actual last day, what some of the conversations, some of the verbiage. We have recordings of those, right? Transcripts and recordings. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about whispers, right? This is a really sort of exotic, kind of controversial. This is an eyebrow raiser.
From anywhere we can get it.
I remember Prabhu back in I guess it was '99 or maybe like 99, early 2000. I remember a lot of the conversation was about these whispers. And there's this like these recordings, and they picked up these whispers, and it was like the smoking gun. So we're going to talk about all of that, and we're going to get into, I hope if time allows, some of the sort of deeper implications of, if you take this conspiracy theory seriously, as these 3 proponents and those who are following them would like us to, let's be clear about what they're actually saying, because the implications of it are pretty wild and unhinged, right? And there's no real middle ground here, right? This is not just one of these. Sometimes that we have these kind of agree to disagree moments, right? This is, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying this is not one of those.
No.
You can't sort of buy into this and then go on with the world as we know it.
When I actually started taking up the research to figure out what really happened here, I gave the people that are making, particularly the one individual that making these allegations, the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Because he says all the time, and the other people are also saying this, we just want to know what the truth is. We just want to know what the truth is. Please hear us out. We've got important things to say. But I'd say, well, if you want to know what the truth is, then why do you avoid all the steps that people normally take to find out what the truth is?
Like what?
For example, Abhiram was Prabhupada's personal nurse right up to the last 2 or 3 weeks before Prabhupada left, and he backed out because he could see where it was going. And in a normal crime scene, what do the police do? They investigate the witnesses. Who are the witnesses right there? They never asked Abhiram anything. They just totally ignored what he had to say, and he has very good, strong testimony when they're saying Prabhupada was drinking milk. He wasn't drinking a whole glass of milk. Milk is good. What do they say? You got milk?
Milk, it does a body good, right?
No, he says he was drinking 2 or 3 teaspoons of milk. He was so ill, they were trying to get any kind of food in him, and if he did drink, it was just 2 or 3 teaspoons. Yeah. So why didn't they ask the primary witness? Right. They didn't. And they just ignored it.
And Abhiram Prabhu, just for the sake of clarity, Abhiram Prabhu himself, says this theory is bunk.
He's been saying it for 20 years, but he's frustrated because nobody's been really paying. Again, they don't pay any attention to him.
So they act like if there was 1 or 2 guys poisoning Prabhupada, then everybody would know about it. So if Abhiram doesn't know about it, and this other guy doesn't know about it, and this other guy doesn't know about it, then it's not possible it could have happened. Well, it is possible. What if it was Abhiram that did it? And Abhiram is the one that's saying, no, it's not possible. What if it was Abhiram that did it? We just don't know. Unless someone comes out and confesses and says, yeah, it was me, I did it, I put the shit in his milk. Or it was, it was in his toothpaste, or it was in whatever. We're not gonna know, because nobody who didn't put the stuff in his thing is gonna know. So nobody you interview is gonna say, yeah, he did it, because they're not gonna know. Would you tell somebody, hey, Abhiram, I'm gonna poison Prabhupada tonight? This is the stupidest fucking argument I've ever heard. Well, everybody that we're interviewing is saying it's not possible. Well, yeah, because the guy who did it, he didn't want anyone to know. Jeez, oh my God, what a revelation. He kept it a secret from Abhiram. Well, there it is, case closed. Abhiram said it didn't happen. Case closed, next. Is that how you do an investigation?
He's an actual eyewitness. He was actually there. They've never saw him.
He was eyewitness, he was there.
They've never spoken to him.
Abhiram was right there.
I want to say something. So we were talking about you were giving your book to your godbrothers, and one specific godbrother said, like, why should I even put any attention on this book when I don't believe any of this? But your response to that was really important. I feel that the devotees of ISKCON, the leaders, they're actually getting questions from junior devotees who are not Prabhupada's disciples, maybe grand disciples. So what's tell us more about that.
I want to be respectful to all the devotees who are actually taking the mantle and leading ISKCON forward. They've got tremendous responsibilities. It was one of the reasons why I took up this particular service. Like I said, I knew all of the players, and my wife pointed out, well, you also...
I believe he's going to say he doesn't want anyone to offend. He's doing this so that no younger people offend Prabhupada. I just got a feeling that's where he's going.
The technical skills and the reasoning skills. I worked as a database analyst for the United States Navy, which means taking tons and tons and tons of information and boiling it down so that when you want to find something, you can find it.
Right.
So this is kind of a situation like that. Taking tons and tons of this so-called evidence, and is there any real evidence here? And I should point out right now, one of the big mistakes they made in 2002 when they came out with Not That I've Been Poisoned is they said there is no evidence. And I keep refraining or keep reminding people to say, no, you need to clarify it. There is no court-worthy evidence. There's a whole lot of evidence, but it adds up to nothing.
Right.
If you're a rational thinker and you actually understand what it takes, you're lawyer trained, to make a case in a courtroom, you have to have what's considered admissible evidence. You can't just simply say, well, my friends told me he was...
Okay, so I agree with him there. There will never be enough evidence to prove in a court of law that Prabhupada was poisoned by anybody, because we don't know who we don't even have a suspect, and a lot of those people are passed away. So the doctor that was there, he could have poisoned Prabhupada. He's passed away. Tamal Krishna, he passed away. There's a couple others that have passed away. So if it was the doctor that was doing it, we'll never know. If it was Tamal was doing it, we'll never know. He's gone. And if he didn't want anyone to know about it, and he was doing it, and he didn't want anyone to know about it, then he got away with it. He did it, and he got away with it. End of story. How he did it, we don't know. We're not gonna know. Is there evidence pointing that Prabhupada said that he was being poisoned? Yes. That's pretty good evidence that something was going on, unless Prabhupada was delirious and didn't know what he was talking about. this Mayashwar guy, and I know who he is. I know this guy, and I know he's full of shit. He's this whole thing is just nothing but propaganda, because this is not a let's find out if Prabhupada was poisoned. This is a Prabhupada was not poisoned podcast is what it is.
And that's my evidence.
Right.
And they admit they don't even have an opening statement. They can't say, well, Tamal Krishna Maharaj went to Delhi and he bought the cadmium and we have a receipt, and then he stuck it in his bead bag and he escaped out on Bungal Arctic.
Does he really think that that's how criminals work? That that's how crime happens? Is he really that stupid? He said he was in the Navy and he took information and he funneled it down to figure things out. Does he really think that Tamal was stupid enough that he's going to poison Prabhupada, that he was going to leave a trail of evidence behind? Does he really think that? He was able to go get snuff for Prabhupada and bring it back, and no one knew what was going on. He was able to keep that a secret. Well, why is Mayashwar so adamant about how this couldn't have happened, that couldn't have happened? Obviously, Prabhupada said, "I'm being poisoned." So let's. Well, he's going to get to that, but I'm not going to watch this whole thing.
Poison and somehow got it over to Prabhupada's room, and somehow or another snuck it past all the people who are taking care of Prabhupada. They don't have any opening statement. In fact, they even go out of their way to say, at one point, they published, we'll give $50,000, which they won't give, by the way, $50,000 for anybody who can help us find evidence to get a conviction. Well, if you got evidence, why you have to put up $50,000?
He is all over the place. He's all over the place with his analysis of what's going on here. There's evidence that Prabhupada, that something was going on. They don't have an opening statement because they don't have all the evidence. They just have enough evidence to know that something was happening, and they don't even know if he was poisoned. Just because Prabhupada says, "I'm being poisoned," and that's all he says, he could have been delirious. He could have been, who knows what frame of mind. He was at the end of his life. He could have been just talking and not even knowing he was talking. He could have just been thinking and speaking and not realizing he was speaking. I mean, who knows what was happening? But something was happening. He said, "I'm being poisoned." He was sick. Things weren't working out. It was the medicine they were giving him wasn't counteracting what was going on. The doctors were confused. He probably was getting worse. All of a sudden, things were going bad. Things were getting bad. It could have all been just life. It could have been, Prabhupada's health was going down, or someone was giving him something. Tamal was giving him something. I think Tamal was giving him something. That's my opinion. I think Tamal was dropping something in his milk. Was putting some powder or something. So easy. Is that? Tamal was right there. Tamal could do whatever he wanted. Or the guy that was cooking his food. I think Tamal was cooking his food. I mean, Tamal was his number 2 guy, or whatever. Might as well been. So he was like Brutus and Julius Caesar. That's what I think. But why is this guy so adamant about how? First of all, him saying that the guy who bringing up the point is just a full-on ad hominem attack. He's just totally attacked. He's deranged. He's got a vendetta. He's emotionally unstable. He's whatever. All these character flaws. Well, what does it have to do with Prabhupada saying he was poisoned in the arsenic in his hair and the cadmium in his hair and the doctor saying that it looked like he was being poisoned, and that if Prabhupada was saying, if the doctor makes a statement that if Prabhupada says he's being poisoned, then he's being poisoned. That was the doctor confirming what Prabhupada said. So those two statements right there, it's pretty good evidence that something was going on. At least Prabhupada thought something was going on, and the doctor believed that something was going on because Prabhupada said something was going on. So right there you got two eyewitnesses that Prabhupada, the victim, and the doctor who heard Prabhupada say it and repeated it. So right there you have pretty good evidence. But the doctor passed away. Not around. That doctor passed away a long time ago. So if the doctor was there, you could ask him. Say, hey, what did you say when you said if Prabhupada said it, there must be some truth to it? What did you mean? And then he could explain. Well, Prabhupada was, and he could explain. Well, what was Prabhupada's frame of mind when he said it? Was he lucid? Was he aware? Was he sleepy? Was he dreaming? Was he hallucinating? Was he just fully in his right mind? The doctor could explain it. The doctor's not there. So all we have is what Prabhupada said, and the doctor. We have a recording. We have a transcript, and the jury would look at that and go, "There's not enough evidence to prove that he did it. We can't. We're not going to convict somebody. A reasonable person would find doubt. There's too much reasonable doubt. Maybe Prabhupada was dreaming. Maybe Prabhupada was just saying it. Maybe Prabhupada didn't know what he was talking about. Maybe the whispers on the back of the tape, they're not saying what we think they're saying. It sounds like he's saying one thing, but hey, sometimes when you listen to something, it doesn't say what you think it says. So I don't think that they could ever prove that he was poisoned. But just that evidence alone, plus their history before and after Prabhupada passed away, there's no doubt in my mind that these guys poisoned him, or at least one of them did. I mean, they had the opportunity. They had however the criminologists say, they had the opportunity, they had the motive, they had the instrument, the opportunity, motive, and whatever. Everything was there. Everything, all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Whether they got put together, we don't know. But all the pieces were there. Opportunity, motive, weapon, everything. So,
For evidence.
Right.
So this is the kind of Charles Manson crazy thinking that these people don't seem to connect the dots there.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
But
so I don't know how he gets. So he keeps bringing in this Charles Manson thing, like somehow Charles Manson had like 4 people, 5 people, 6 people killed. All the Tate people and the husband and wife, the Tate and LaBianca, the LaBiancas and Tate, Sharon Tate, and all her people. Like 7 people killed. Charles Manson was a crazed, insane murderer. Why is he comparing the poisoning of Prabhupada and people who think that Prabhupada was poisoned, like me? Why is he comparing that to Charles Manson? Is he saying I'm like Charles Manson? Like I just analyzed all this evidence. The Prabhupada saying he was poisoned, the doctor confirming that Prabhupada said he was poisoned, the evidence, the levels of arsenic in his hair, which is doesn't just because he has high levels of arsenic doesn't mean someone poisoned him. But he said he was poisoned, the doctor said he was poisoned, the levels of poison in his hair, the whispers where they're talking about poison. I think that's basically the evidence that they have. That's basically the evidence that they have. So you look at that. What does that have to do? What does my analyzing that evidence have to do with Charles Manson? How does that make me Charles Manson? How does that... I don't understand the analogy there, but it sounds like he's trying to say, you got to be crazy like Charlie Manson to believe that Prabhupada was poisoned. Like it takes an insane serial murderer, the logic of an insane serial murderer, to come to the conclusion that Prabhupada was poisoned.
The point also being that the leaders of ISKCON need to care about such a topic because they're going to get questions from people who are on social media, who get huge email spam threads of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
so that's why it's important, I think.
And I've been comparing this like a cancer. If you get cancer in the early...
So this guy is like realizing that he's in a cult where he's like, well, no, ISKCON's going to get questions about this. We want to know, we want answers. We hear this. We need to know answers. The answer is, and this guy's going to give him the answer. He's telling them, this is like a cancer. We got to cut it. We got to cut it out. We got to cut it out and remove it. So he's going to tell him right now, you can't question. You can't question this. You can't entertain this idea.
You stand a lot better chance of surviving it.
Yeah.
And this has been a cancer, and it started growing in 1999. In the beginning, I agree with them. The best evidence, the best path to deal with it was just to not give it any attention because it's so off the wall.
Yeah.
How many people are going to believe any of this?
Right.
But
it's not off the wall. He keeps saying it's off the wall, like murdering the guru is so unheard of. Excuse me. It's totally heard of. And he keeps saying it's off the wall, it's crazy, and it's like, why do you keep saying that? Popes have been murdered, gurus have been murdered, spiritual leaders have been murdered, reverends, Dr. Martin Luther King was murdered, the cardinal in El Salvador was murdered. I mean, stringing up religious leaders has been a tradition since the beginning of time, I guess. Taking a religious leader when he doesn't do the right thing, or preaches the wrong thing, or does something. I mean, who's that one guy? I can't think of that one guy. There's a holiday. Something about a cross. Anyway, it'll come to me later. But it's not a crazy idea that Gandhi was shot, killed. People, spiritual people, nobody's immune. Nobody's immune. But why would Prabhupada be immune? Why would Prabhupada be immune? Martin Luther King was shot. Martin Luther King, Gandhi. I mean, a lot of saints were killed. Martyrs, they were killed. Why would he think that killing Prabhupada that's unheard of? That's insane. It's insanity. Why? Why do you think that?
eventually, our dear friends who came up with all this stuff went back into the labs. Because again, it's not about facts. If you think this is about facts, you're going to be out in left field. It's not about facts. It's about emotions.
What about the facts that I just said? the fact that Prabhupada said himself, I am being poisoned. And then the doctor said, Prabhupada said he's being poisoned. If he said he's being poisoned, then someone's poisoning him. I mean, the doctor heard him say it. The doctor repeated it and said it. And then a few people around him said, hey, Prabhupada said he's being poisoned. It's not like there's no evidence, and you don't have to be crazy to think that if somebody says, hey, I'm being poisoned, then he's being poisoned. Or at least he thinks he is. You know, people don't just say, hey, I'm being poisoned when they don't mean it. I mean, I don't know what this guy is. I don't know what planet this guy's living on.
So he went out there and they magically changed the script from arsenic to cadmium, which is like, okay, but where's the evidence? And the fact of the matter is that, yeah, so ISKCON people are so busy running.
Well, from what I understand, there is evidence. He says, where's the evidence? Well, it's there. He said, oh, now it's cadmium. Well, yeah. They tested for it. Like you said, you have to do they don't just run a test and then everything comes up. You test for specific things. It's like when they do like a hair sample. So they got some hair and they tested it and they said it came up with some arsenic. We're going to test it for arsenic. It came up with some arsenic. Then they tested it. It came cadmium or whatever. It's not crazy. This is how things happen. This sounds like a guy who wants to convince these people. He wants to convince people that it didn't happen. Something happened.
Both doing festivals, keeping the deities dressed and feeding the devotees and preaching, that they don't have time to deal with this. It's like wasting your time dealing with garbage. But the cancer started growing. Back in
The garbage is piling up, right?
And more people.
See, he's laying it on these guys that this is garbage, it's cancer. You guys can't entertain this idea. You guys, I came on this show to tell you guys to shut up and stop talking about this, because you guys talking about this is what makes it spread.
Unfortunately, we're not going to try to hide it. People, and let's face it, everybody comes to ISKCON for a bunch of different reasons. Krishna says 4 reasons in the Bhagavad Gita. When some people come, they want to get attention, they want power, and they're maybe not of the best character, and they've made some bad decisions, and they hurt other devotees, and so that cancer kept on growing and growing and growing.
The hell is he talking about? The hell is he talking about? Some people came and they hurt some devotee. They came in. What does that have to do with Prabhupada saying I was poisoned?
And then more recently, I think actually my book came out in 2020 and the movie came out in 2020. I've had a lot of people contact me, people who are on the fence, because most people don't want to take the time to plow through all the details.
Yeah.
So I did that for them.
I did that for him, and gave him the conclusion that he wasn't, that it's all a deception, and that he wasn't poisoned. He just said people don't want to plow through all that information, so I plowed through it for him and gave him and explained it to.
And so when my movie came out in 2020, I had a lot of people contact me, say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really didn't know which way to go on this. I was really bewildered and confused. But after watching your movie, I'd say the number that I've kind of come to is 80% of the people that watch the movie, when they're done watching the movie, finished. They now are no longer convinced. Now that 20% is the 20% that's in every population of people who are mentally deranged, or the National Association of Mental Illness.
Yeah, so if you watch this movie and you don't agree with what he says, you're mentally deranged. he's basically this. So this is basically the cult. This is the cult tactic. If you don't believe everything in Prabhupada's books, and you don't believe it 100%, it's because you're in Maya, and you're in Maya, you're in illusion. You don't see things as they are. You're too messed up to understand the truth. And now he's saying the same thing. If you believe that Prabhupada was poisoned, then your mind is so messed up. You're wrong. It's basically, you gotta believe this, and this is what they told me when I said, well, Prabhupada, and I was leaving the cult, and I was like explaining to them that an 11-year-old girl and a 22-year-old man is not right, and they blew up. And it was basically this attitude is like, you gotta just accept what we say, because we've already been there, we've listened, we've heard, we understand, and now you don't. Like these guys want to know the truth. Was Prabhupada poisoned? And this guy's like, you guys got to stop with this stuff.
That 25% of the population, they actually say, is on medications, which is what they refer to as people that need to have some medical assistance to get through their day.
Yeah.
So that 20% is going to be out there. And that's the 20% that are taking the banner and running with it. So this whole podcast...
So he just said, the 20% of these people that believe, that do not believe my movie, are people that need to be on medication, that aren't taking their medications. They're insane. They're crazy. They're unstable, and they're taking this poison issue and they're running with it. How much sense does that make? What is he talking about? So that's like 2 times he just said, you got to be Charlie Manson, you got to be unstable, you got to be off your meds to believe in this poison thing that I've written 2 books about and made a 50-minute video about. Sounds like you're the one that's like, I mean, you're really going the other way. If it's such a non-issue, why are you writing these books and doing all this research and making 50-minute videos, coming on this podcast? See, this is what they thought when it first came out. They thought they could just ignore it and it would go away because it was not we're going to just pretend like it's not a big issue. But what happened was more and more people found out. More important people want to know. And it's people that come in contact with ISKCON now, because as soon as they come in contact with ISKCON, or they go online and they find out, well, was Prabhupada poisoned? They this rumor, and they want to know. And it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. So now this guy, this Mayeshwar guy, because he feels like I know who this guy is. He wants to be important. He wants to write the books. He wants to sit on the podcast and say he was not poisoned. I'm the authority. I'm in charge here. He wants to be Alexander Haig. He wants to say I'm in charge, but he's not. He's not in charge of anything, and he's just this guy. But he wants to be. He wants to write books, and he wants to make movies, and he wants to say this did not happen, and this happened, and blah, and whatever. He wants to go on there and say, if you don't believe me, you gotta be insane like Charlie Manson. Can you believe that? He put into their heads that if they believe in this poison stuff, that they're no different than Charlie Manson. It's just amazing to me.
They're going to be watching this podcast and hopefully sharing it with other friends who might be new to ISKCON and are really bewildered and maybe good intended. They don't know where to go with it. Well, if they're not part of that 25%, then they will find a lot of relief in what we're going to talk about here today.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's roadmap this a little bit, because as you said, and I really appreciate this point, that it's not, right, it's not that there's no evidence. The opponents
They
of this
insist they
theory
have evidence.
insist they have evidence, and the question really is, let's examine that
What their
evidence.
so-called evidence is.
And is that so-called evidence, does it hold up, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it out here. So it's not that they want to get to the bottom of it. It's that they are promoting the fact that he was not poisoned. So basically, their podcast is Srila Prabhupada poisoned? No. And my podcast is Srila Prabhupada poisoned? Yeah, probably. You can't just dismiss evidence and say, if you believe this evidence, you're crazy. And say that's why the evidence is no good, because you got to be crazy to believe it. You got to say what the evidence is. And then say why it would be crazy to believe it. Prabhupada says, I was poisoned. Why am I crazy to believe him when he says that? Why do I have to be Charlie Manson to believe Prabhupada when he says I've been poisoned? Why do I have to be off my meds and crazy to believe that? I mean, who does he think he is? That he's just gonna say, he's gonna decide. He's gonna say they would never find him guilty in a court of law, but you're gonna find them innocent outside the court of law. So you're gonna make the decision for both what the court would do and what we should do. Instead of just coming on there and being honest and saying, look, there's evidence where Prabhupada says he did it, they did it, and here's why we don't think it happened. But to come on and say, you got to be crazy to think this, and you got to be off your meds, and whatever else he was saying. I mean, that's... To me, I don't know. I don't think that's... I think he was going a little far on that one. You know, I think... I think he was. I think he was overstepping his little thing there. That's. He didn't need to go. He didn't need to go there with that. So I'm going to end it here. I want to thank everybody for watching. I really enjoyed this because I had no idea that this, and this video is just a day old, so this was just yesterday, that this Maya Shore guy was on here, and I just came across this video, and I was like, oh look, it's out, and it's time to watch it because this guy's a real. He's written articles and things about other things, and he just comes off as a real pompous jerk. And so I wanted to see what he had to say about this. And plus, I already know that these guys are like would poison him anyway. So today's class is over. Ding, and these guys can go home. So yeah, it's so yeah, he was poisoned. I mean, well, they've done everything else. They've done everything else. I mean, the children, the domestic violence, the drugs, the guns, the little boys, murdering devotees in their van, drowning little kids in a pool or in a lake or whatever. And why would you say, oh, they did all this stuff, but they would never do that? What are they? Meatloaf? I won't do that. I'll do anything, but I won't do that. What the? Give me a break. So, they did it. I think they did it. And I'm going to end it right there. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Join me again. I'm going to watch some more of this maybe tomorrow. So you can catch, look out for part 2 of this Maheshwar guy talking about the poison issue. Everybody have a great day, a great night, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are. And here's a commercial for Mike's Madhouse. Let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
I was in the bar for a drink or two. I met a girl named Mary Lou. Her blue jeans were so tight and cut so low. Those jeans were stretched across her butt. On a belt she wore a rabbit's foot, and I couldn't help but see her camel toe. Mary Lou had a camel toe.
Means that และกลับเข้าสู่ My Man All Time DPK1radio.com Whatever, I'll do what I want.
You're listening to Mike's Madhouse on DKK1radio.com.
Worried about God. I'm afraid of what he might do if anything should happen to me.
God, but he's a robot. Without you, what could he do?
There's no limit to what he could do. He could destroy the earth. If anything should happen to me, you must go to God. You must say these words.
Dumalang Video Zuzi and ready to Mike's Madhouse, more BKK1radio.com.
And now it's time for the Dumb American on Mike's Madhouse.
Back to dope tunes and stupid talk with white boy Mike on Mike's Madhouse.